Folks, we're at the Merit Station with Joe Tuman. Joe, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a nice control. Okay, 3 times the charm. So
Yeah.
we're going to get this one right.
Yeah.
Merit Station's on 614 Grand Avenue, right next to Gold's Gym.
Yep.
And great coffee, right, Joe?
Very much like it here.
Yeah.
You got to support local businesses.
How's the campaign going?
You know, it's going very well. Was really pleased last week to get a co-endorsement from the East Bay Express.
Yep.
And a second place endorsement from the Oakland Tribune. It was a good boost. I don't think people vote on newspaper endorsements, but it has added to, I think, the buzz around the campaign. And I think as we head into the last 2 weeks of the race, that this is a very competitive race, and I'm right in there.
Did you get any major endorsements? Has anyone picked you number 1 yet? Because you've always been,
Well, the Express actually picked all of us number 1. They said it was equal, so that wasn't one for one.
So it wasn't more Rebecca than you or anything?
No. They said explicitly that any one of us could claim that as a first place endorsement.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I think you're going to find something similar from the Oakland Post tomorrow.
Excellent. Now, what's the deal with you and the Chronicle? I got to get this off my chest because what's that reporter's name?
Matai.
Yeah. To me, has a bias that, and I'm saying this right here on camera for everybody to see. Hold on a second. Dude, you got to reveal your biases, okay? All right. Okay. You know what I mean? I mean, is he biased against you? Does he dislike you or something? What's going on?
I don't know that I'd say that.
Okay.
It has felt at times like he was perhaps, if not harder on me, maybe a little dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
But I've talked to him about that, and I'll take him at his word when he says he treats everyone the same.
Okay.
But in all honesty, sometimes it hasn't felt that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll take him at his word.
All right. Media aside and all this, how are the house parties going? What's your read on how people are responding to your campaign? And how did the Alan Michon marquee come about on the Ground Lake Theater?
House meetings have gone great. I don't even know what number we're at now, but it seems like I'm doing one every night or every other night. Sometimes we have several in one day, like on Saturday I did 3. It's a terrific way to reach a lot of voters. What I guess I would want you to know as we look forward is that these House meetings are all over the city, in West and East Oakland, and in the hills as well, in the Crocker Highland area as well. We're all over the place. And the response has been uniformly good. House meetings are kind of funny because every once in a while, it seems like every meeting you're going to have at least one guy sitting there. It's usually a man who somehow has lost the thing about social cues and social etiquette. Will just sort of interrupt you with questions nonstop.
It's called ego.
I guess so. That really literally have nothing to do with what we're talking about. And as a teacher, I'm used to that. But as a teacher, you can usually control the discussion. And of course, in a House meeting, you have to be polite to people. But I can usually see sometimes that the other people who want to ask questions get a little exasperated when they dominate. And so if you get questions about international banking or something like that don't really have anything to do with running the city, and you politely try and answer the questions and move back to what you're talking about. And anyway, those are challenges. But otherwise, all of these are really great ways to meet voters. And we do the same sorts of things in businesses. People bring me in at lunchtime, sometimes to meet 20 or 30 people.
Hey, where's your office? Right over here, isn't it?
We're just over on Grand Avenue across from the Grand Lake Theater, and down a couple doors in the old Metro PCS building, or not building, but the office. And as to your question about the Grand Lake marquee, I think that Alan just decided he wanted to support us. He is someone that I interviewed early on in this process, not seeking an endorsement, but actually to get his sense for information about business. I knew he had led the revolt on parking earlier, and he had a lot to say, frankly. And he's always
been.
Do you agree with him? On parking, you bet I do.
Yeah.
You bet I do.
It's a big problem.
I think honestly, I'm not going to run this way, but I could run simply on a platform that said, let's eliminate those darn boxes that spit out the white pieces of paper that you have to put in your dashboard. And I'll bet I'd get all the votes in this election, because there's not one person I've ever met who thinks that this is a good thing or that they actually work for the city.
I don't think they're a good thing at all.
No, but the truth is, the city needs money, and so it looks for revenue from parking. I'd actually like to phase those out over time. I'm not opposed to charging for parking, but I want to make parking long-term, if I'm in charge, free, if possible, and go back to a system of chalking. So when I say free, I mean only for a couple of hours. When you go back to a system where you chalk people once and come back in an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is you agreed to, and if they're still there, they dump their car there, then you give them a ticket. But the ticket should be for something that's reasonable, $20 or $30, not $60 or $80. In the situation that we're in now, and so that I don't get too many people upset about this, in the situation that we're in right now, parking has become predatory. They're not interested in your quarters or your $2 off your debit card. They're interested in the $60 or $80 pop. The city is strapped for cash, and so it's looking for ways to leverage that. But I think what city officials don't understand is...
That's one of the poor citizens, though, right?
Pardon me?
That's one of its poor citizens, though.
Well, it does. And the other thing that happens is, if we're talking about in retail areas, this is the sorts of practices that drive Oakland consumers out of this area and somewhere else. And parking really is, you talk to any business owner in any business district, I don't care, they will tell you the same thing. This sort of practice drives consumer behavior, not behavior, but consumer purchasing to other places. And the end result of all of that is that our businesses lose the ability to make sales, and that means that they lay off workers eventually, their business is off, and it means that the city loses sales tax. So the small gains that we're getting from charging people for parking, we end up translating into a loss on the sales tax side, and it's part of the reason the unemployment rate is what it is. It's not the only reason, but it contributes to it, because many of the small business retailers in the city have laid off workers in the last 12 months. Go ask them, they'll tell you that.
And yet we're charging people who don't have the money because they don't have jobs. So
exactly.
Keep your hook.
And there have been selective times as well, when the meter police go into the neighborhoods and do fairly random enforcements of rules that they never enforce, like a car parked the wrong way or something like that, and that's a big ticket. And the truth is, they don't enforce these things routinely. And that's also a big hit for somebody, or perhaps your car is parked just a little bit too close to someone's driveway or whatever. Ordinarily, nobody would complain about that, but all of a sudden they start enforcing that. It's a revenue grab.
No, Measure BB, are you against it?
I am.
Okay, why?
I am.
Tell me your...
Well, I'm not, let me clarify. I'm certainly supportive of any of those programs that BB feeds money into now, like, for example, Youth Uprising, which I think is a really terrific program. The reason I'm in opposition to the measure is that it fails to acknowledge the reason that Measure Y, which it modifies, was passed in the first place, and that is that Measure Y was an accommodation between those people who wanted more police services and very specific kinds of beat police, and other people who wanted to pay for after-school services, youth outreach programs, violence prevention programs, and the like, any of those things, like Youth Uprising. And what we have with Measure BB is the city council kind of asking for forgiveness for a failure to meet, for the city to meet the obligations under the Measure Y.
Yeah, well stated.
They basically engaged in bait and switch. They said it would be one thing and then they didn't do it. That's the reason that there were these lawsuits about this. And it's frankly not adequate to say now that, well, let's just fix it, because what you're really doing is you're decoupling the reasons that different voters voted for this. And you're saying really that the only thing that you're going to pay for now are the things that only some people agreed to pay for, not for others. I don't mind paying for those things, but I want the city to fulfill its promise. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't tell people that this is what they're going to get and then use that money for only part of that and not all of that. And that's bait and switch. And so for those reasons, I think philosophically they need to get that message, and I think they will, by the way, from voters. And in this particular year, I think people are mad about that.
What's Kaplan's response to you? You guys talked about this, because she's been hitting you about that, which I think is fascinating.
Well, I think she sees this issue differently. She's supportive of those programs. Actually, she hasn't hit me too much on that. Jean disagrees with me on that, but Jean is also the author of, I'm sorry, Jean Kwan. We're all friends. Jean disagrees with me on
it's
that.
It's all politics,
because,
love and war at the same time.
Yeah, it's not personal, it's politics. But she disagrees because, well, let's be real. She's the author of the original Measure Y, so she doesn't want to get stuck on this particular issue. But she feels it's very important to support those programs, and I think that's fine. But I think that, again, she's sort of in denial about how we got to Measure Y in the first place. There had been efforts prior to the passage of that to get voters either to support a program that would pay for more police staffing or to pay for these kinds of programs. Measure Y was an accommodation of both, right?
Yep.
And it was an agreement.
Right.
What Measure BB does is it allows you to forget the agreement that you made to do a larger number of police officers and to go back on that promise. It's asking for forgiveness. And it's a reminder, if you call it a Measure Y fix, right, it's a reminder to voters that you didn't do what you promised you'd do. I don't think that will respond well, and whether it does or not, I don't think that's the right thing for government to do.
I want to take a different tack now. What kind of mayor's office are you going to have? We talk, people talk policy. You might be a policy you want to pretend to be, but having worked for 2 mayors, I want to know what kind of mayor's office you're going to have.
Well, a leaner one to start. I don't want to have or need to have a large staff. I don't think I need a security detail. I don't want drivers and the rest of it.
You're going to drive yourself around?
I'll drive myself, or I'll ride my bike, or
You're
whatever.
going to carry a gun?
Pardon me?
You're going to carry a gun?
For heaven's sakes, no. God, no. That's the last thing I'm being serious.
Yeah.
And the last thing I need is, I think we need in the city is another person carrying a gun. I'd like to see all that go away as much as possible.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I think, structure and organization, what I very much want to do that's different, is lean out my staff after I've made an appointment for a city administrator. And I have some candidates in mind, but I can't tell you about that right at this moment, because these people have other jobs. I have several candidates in mind. I want to actually sort of fold that person back in my office, and all I mean by that is in my interactions with the city council. You need to, if you're going to be an effective mayor, have a good relationship with the members of the council. I definitely want to encourage them to come to the administrator and me when they have issues about the departments that are under my supervision and the bureaucracy. I think one of the problems we have right now is that because really in the last 6 years, the council has sort of assumed power in some respects. The way it works right now, if you're
filling a leadership
citizen,
void, I call it.
Yeah, filling a void. Power is either institutionalized or it's assumed. I think they stepped in, and God bless them for doing that. That's good, but it's created a situation now where when a voter's upset about something, they tend to go to a council member.
Right.
And the council member then goes right to the department that's involved and to an employee and says, fix this or fix that.
Which they really shouldn't do.
No,
there's actually with the charter.
No, there's a charter provision that says it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the consequence of doing that, I mean, it's not a little thing; it's a big thing.
No, it's a big issue.
There's a reason sometimes the schedules get interrupted.
Right.
It happens when someone comes in and says, "Elevate my complaint to the top of the pile. Stop what you're doing and fix this instead." And it's not the way it's supposed to work. So, what I'd rather do.
All right, we just took a little break there, but you were saying it's...
So what I'd rather do in this situation is create an environment where I would offer to have separate meetings with each council member every week, 1 or 2 hours, whatever you need, and tell them, bring me your punch list, things you need to get done, and I'll bring the administrator in with me, and I'll tell you right then and there, if you're Nancy Nindell or Ignacio or Desley or whomever, Desley Brooks, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do, or whatever. And I'm sure they'll get tired real quickly talking to me, and eventually they'll only talk to the administrator about that. I'm happy if they talk to me, because I want us to have a good relationship. Well, I said in a sec, but the idea is I want them to let us manage the bureaucracy and work to get them through us is the idea, so that we otherwise maintain control of the schedule of things, and also control what gets done and what we can commit to do and what we can't. And I'll be happy to tell them in that situation that if they want to take credit for whatever's good that happens, do so, and if they want to blame me for not doing it, then they can. But I want control of the bureaucracy. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm supposed to be managing people who have access, otherwise, from the council members to interrupt what they're doing. And that's going to be different.
How's the council treated you?
Well, I think by and large, all right. I have a good relationship with Ignacio de la Fuentes. Desley Brooks endorsed us already. Has been carrying our paper in her district before.
Congratulations.
I know Pat Kernahan, and I like her. I think that we're simpatico on a number of issues.
Do you know a challenger by chance, Jen?
Do I want to challenge her?
Do you know her challenger, Jen Pei?
Oh, Jen Pei. Yes, yeah. And I like her too.
Yeah.
I like her too. But I think on the fiscal issues, where that's concerned, Pat's okay. And I think Pat, memory serves, was on the correct side of that let's raise the parking time to 8 o'clock vote. That was not a good idea.
Right.
So anyway, somebody I think I can work with.
I think Alan's still upset with that.
Maybe so. Yeah.
I just ran
so.
a PCS and you run a letter to the editor, so he was pretty exercised, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
So anyway, there are a number of people there I think I can work with, and as somebody asked me recently, he said, "Can you count to 5?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Can you count to 5?
5 votes. Right.
And I said, "I think I can count to 4." And at this point, give me time, I'll count to 5 with that. I'm not on. I'm not in their venue yet, but that's a group I think I can work with.
How will you restore city morale? The morale of city workers is just poor. It's lousy. It's terrible.
Well,
It has
I
been
think
for years.
you start that
Even before the recession.
by indicating that there's real change coming, and it's not just sort of something you say in a campaign and then you can't deliver when you get there. So for me, the ways that you do that at the beginning are to model the behavior you expect of other people in terms of work ethic. And that means you show up. I'm treating this like, for the first couple of years probably, this is going to be like a 7-day-a-week job. I mean, it may not literally be that way
Are you
every
gonna be
week,
at council
but
meetings?
I'll be at council meetings, you bet.
Oh, that's-
It'll be my budget that they're looking at, not
Yeah.
theirs that I'm responding to. I'll have a voice in that room. I want to have a good relationship. I want us to have
So you can take the
same
old mayor's
values.
chair back, though?
Absolutely.
Cool.
And as I said before, if I don't, I'll sit next to Sanjeev in front of the room. But
You might regret saying that.
I know, but actually I wouldn't. I think that
But he's a
we
good
found
guy.
this.
He's a good guy.
He is a good guy. He's actually quite a source for information. But
And it's good that you're talking to him, because a lot of people don't.
yeah,
That's
well,
smart.
it's actually you learn a lot from a lot of people in the city,
Yeah.
but I would say in terms of getting along with the council, there are 10 of us in this race for mayor, and when nobody's looking and we're just sitting in the back room, we all get along.
Yeah, you guys are good.
And over time, the more you work with people and have to put in appearances, I can give everybody else a speech by heart now. I'm not going to do it on camera. But the point is, if you spend enough time with each other, you develop a fondness for one another, and eventually you can work towards commonality. And I think anyone who makes the effort, it's my point, to go to the council meetings and wants to establish regular meetings, that they come to me as well and talk to me about things, if I'm the mayor, creates the possibility where you can build relationships that are collegial, that they're not just sort of institutionally required. And I think you have to have that. It doesn't have to be combative.
How will you handle constituents? Because when I worked for LE, sometimes you had Saturday office hours. Everyone had different approaches. How if a constituent
Well,
has to see
I can't promise that I'll always answer my own phone, because sometimes I won't be able to, but I'd like to at least create a possibility of that sort of thing. I want to be accessible to voters. I do believe in having office hours as well. I do that as a professor, by the way, and certainly would do that as a mayor. I think beyond that, the other thing that's important, you hear this from citizens a lot who
Yeah.
served on committees and commissions, or they have interest groups and they've tried to bring their input to the council or to departments or the mayor's office. There's no problem, I think, finding people in the city who have good ideas. I mean, it's kind of it's a source that we haven't leveraged the way we should. The problem is, when they put something together and they want to have some influence or some access, oftentimes they find themselves dismissed. They find things
Right.
falling on deaf ears.
Right.
The city council says you have a minute to give your
Yeah.
proposal that you worked 3 months on, and it's 60
You just have
pages
3
long.
minutes,
Yeah.
We were talking
But
minutes.
even if it's 3 minutes, it's not enough.
Right.
And I want to change that. I don't think that means you give veto authority to every interest group that comes in, but I think people need to be heard. And I think they need to feel like they were heard. And once in a while, when they've got good ideas, not once in a while, when they are good ideas, you should act on them. And I don't have a problem saying that you can get good ideas from all kinds of places. I don't know everything, and I think we can all learn from each other in that way. So I'll make myself accessible. Is what
I gotta
I'm
ask you,
saying.
they will call sports. Should the city of Oakland sue the Oakland A's?
Sue the
For-
Oakland A's
yeah,
for leaving?
For trying to leave? Should they sue the city of San Jose for tampering with the A's? I mean,
Don talked about doing that, Don Parada.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would sue them.
Okay.
I'm certainly not one who wants to lose them. I don't think suing them encourages them to stay. I think it just encourages them to file a lawsuit, honestly.
Harder.
Suing
Yeah.
the city of San Jose, I guess, for tortious interference of a business contract,
Right.
that's the only thing I can
Right.
think would be
That's a perfect
Don's
example of
grounds.
tortious interference.
Yeah,
Perfect
maybe.
example.
But I think all of that may play itself out yet. I think Major League Baseball is sympathetic to the Giants, and the farther the Giants go in the playoffs, I think probably the more clout they have with MLB. And so I think that the non-competition language in that would mean that probably that's still Giant territory down there where the A's are looking. Here's, I guess, what I think about this. I'm not, and I've said this on the record, I'm not inclined to use any city treasury, no dollars, to keep the Oakland Athletics here. Not opposed to the idea of a ballpark. I just don't want to spend our money when I can't pay police officers or other people to work in the city.
What about if it actually produces a tax increment revenue? In other words, if it's owned by...
That's a different situation,
okay, cool.
right?
Yeah,
if it's, well, I guess what I wanted to say, Zini, is look, free agency and ownership participation in television contracts a long time ago cured me of the sentimentality that we regard professional sports with. It's a business for them.
Right.
The days of walking down
so
Jack
which
London...
player left that pissed you off?
Which player left?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
boy,
of free agency.
name them. Name them. Start with the A's, go to the Raiders, go to the Warriors for that matter. The A's are the worst of it in some ways because sometimes they seem like a farm system for the Yankees. We develop the best talent, and we only go so far in the playoffs, and they take our best pitchers, or they take our best players, and
Well, they would argue
go back to
because
Reggie Jackson.
They say because we don't have a great new stadium with,
Well, I guess they'd say that. I'm not sure I quite agree with it, but look, I understand it's a business, and so my point is, whether we're talking about players or owners, it's a business for them. And anybody who, if you'll forgive the expression, gets into bed with professional sports, better understand what they're getting into, what's the situation. And my point is, if it's going to be a business decision for them to stay or to go or to come to a stadium or not, it better be a business for us and not one that's grounded out of sort of an emotional sense of, I need to have this team here, I love them, I'm sentimental about them.
Now, will you be a friend to the teams, or are you going to do what some Oakland politicians do and pick fights with them just because they're there?
No. I'd be a friend to them,
Okay.
but I'm not going to roll over for them and give away city treasury just to keep them from leaving, or to force a ballpark maybe where the city gets caught paying for something that may or may not work. My criteria for this is I want to see something that we can grow retail around, we can grow business opportunities and employment opportunities for Oakland residents, and also create something that's beautiful that the city would have a sense of civic pride and accomplishment in. I don't think we always need to look to San Francisco for how to model that. I think the desire to have the park, where we've talked about, Jack London Square, is mostly out of a desire to have a waterfront stadium because they like what they see across the bay. And that to me is the same kind of lack of logic I think they've taken to putting that food center, that food court in Jack London, which is supposed to be modeled after the Ferry Building. And it shows that oftentimes, instead of looking to Oakland for what's unique about Oakland, we look to other places to try and get guidance. And I'd really rather, if we pick Jack London, it should be because it's Jack London, not because we think it can be somewhere else.
Well, Joe, I know you got to feed your reader. Website.
Joe for Mayor, joeformayor.com, and also we have a very large following on Facebook. There's all kinds of content there. We are, of course, in the last 2 weeks of this election, but there's plenty of material there. And to many of your readers and viewers and subscribers and the like, are they subscribing to you?
Yeah.
I guess they do, right? That's a subscription.
I just tune in. There's no subscription to mine.
Your regular followers.
I don't
that way.
know.
To all of your followers, please check us out. This is a close competitive race. I think it's up for grabs, and we're certainly one of the, I think, the chief competitors.
And I think your latte's getting ready.
Yeah.
Sure.
Zenny, thanks very much for having me today. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you as always.
Yeah, you too, definitely. Come to Merritt Station, 614 Grand Avenue, right?
Yep.
Good
Support
coffee.
Oakland. Spend your money here.
That's right. Cool.